shout out Noah Gragson, man. 6th place finish at his home track. Really good stuff. He was a back marker, I feel like, for most of this race. But the team really kind of found something there in the second half. And you just saw that number 10 car kind of creep up and up and up the leaderboard ever so slightly. And then he just kind of parked it in 6th place for the last handful of laps. And good on him, dude, you know, for not only getting there, but being able to stay there. Like that, I think, is the most impressive thing. It was no fluke. Like you could talk about Daytona and all that, you know, but this was no fluke. Like he was in the back. The team made changes throughout the race. They never gave up and comes home with the best finish for that 10 car on a 1.5 miles in 2 years. 2 years, which I think is even more telling how off Stewart-Haas has been, even with Eric Almirola. That's via Trey Ryan on Twitter. He's got some really good stats, really in the weeds. So definitely check him out on Twitter for just those random stats. But I mean, eye-opening, honestly, for a 1.5 mile finish for that car. But huge confidence boost for Gragson. Really good stuff. Chase Briscoe, another driver where it just kind of fell out here at Vegas, but he was a top 10 car for much of the day. He had really good qualifying speed. Maybe this 14 team has found a little something as well. I mean, Ryan Preece, Josh Berry, they were never really a factor, but see the improvements from Gragson throughout the entire race and the speed that Chase Briscoe had brought early in the race wasn't sustainable. Those are signs. Those are good signs, and you certainly want to take any good sign you can have with Stewart-Haas Racing. And I think approaching Phoenix could be it's a very curious spot for them because Chase Briscoe is a guy who has had a lot of success at Phoenix in his career. He's a former winner there. He finished 7th in this race a year ago. Josh Berry built his career on short track racing, and he was pretty solid in his couple of stints filling in for Chase Elliott last year. He was 10th Phoenix, that runner-up finish at Richmond. So I think you're going to certainly look at Berry, and if you're one of those guys with superstitions, I mean, look at the car he took over, Kevin Harvick, 9-time winner, his playground. So some superstition, some good juju with that, but very interested to see kind of what Berry could do on a short track and what the speed is there. Same with Ryan Preece, another short track racer who, you know, last year that was certainly where we saw his strengths, even if it was still, you know, mediocre at best. But you want to see the team improve just a little bit. And then Gragson, I mean, certainly still a wild card. We'll see kind of what he could do. But what's kind of your read on Stewart-Haas Racing here? Because we're getting some signs of improvement. Expectations still tempered, but it's at least encouraging to see, you know, some of these positive blips that we've been getting throughout the race. But I'm curious what your read is on Briscoe, though, specifically, because I think he's obviously the guy that is, you know, he's elder statesman's the wrong way to say it, but he's the veteran on that team. He's the face of that team that has to lead these guys, you know, to the promised land. So give me your thoughts on SHR, especially coming out of Vegas, what you saw. And Briscoe as a whole, especially kind of going into Phoenix, what's your read on the 14th?
Well, signs of life. I think that's the biggest thing to take away out of these, you know, first 3 races. You know, we spoke about it, you know, preseason show, and I think a lot of people have been talking about it. Tony Stewart's talked openly, which is kind of crazy to hear a team owner say the words that he was saying coming into the year. But to see any speed at all is, I wouldn't say a win, good. But yes, it's good. It's good to see. And we've seen really solid speed. I mean, you mentioned Briscoe. He was really good at Atlanta. He was a show. He was the one pulling off those 3 wide moves, and that's what bit him at the end. You know, he was in the middle. I think that was 4 wide at the time, and it just got too tight. You know, and when you play that game, you win those prizes. And he was really good at Vegas as well. You know, I was keeping an eye on him all day, you know, from practice, qualifying. You know, Gragson practiced really well, but he didn't qualify well. He wasn't running particularly that well. Briscoe, I felt like it was the opposite. And then they overlapped each other late in the race. Briscoe was going to the back, and Gragson on that last restart, Mike Joy's like, "Oh, Noah Gragson's 6th." Like, what the hell? How'd he get to 6th? And he's running for a top 5. He was 5th at one point, and Chastain was falling back. I'm like, he's got a top 5 in the books. This is unbelievable. It took this 10 car, I think 9 races to get a top 10 last year with one of the most experienced drivers in the field. And for Gragson to be away for as long as he was, and to have a new manufacturer, a new team, new personnel, new teammates, everything, for him to, get the top 10 at Daytona, Atlanta, he didn't have a fair shot. And then to get a 6th here, that's huge for him. He's one of those drivers who's 80% mental. I feel, he's somebody who can spiral down. He's somebody who can get mad at himself, mad at other drivers. We've seen him do everything. He did everything in Xfinity, from kill it on the track to getting in fist fights, and that's been bringing it over to the Cup side. And I love that with him. He's somebody who I really want to see succeed in this sport. Him and Hocevar kind of have that same type of edge. And to see Gragson not only have this pace, but to, as you said, not be a factor all day, but then just pop up right at the end. Like, I think there's something to show for that, with somebody who might not have the best car or might not have the best hand of luck, but then they're still able to wrap around a good finish at the end.
I do want to talk about Spire Motorsports for a minute, man, because Corey LaJoie, he doesn't have the result to show for it, but I think it's really time to start taking this team maybe a little seriously. Like, there's going to be some overreactions. It's the first real race of the year. But Chevrolet, Spire Motorsports, preseason, Corey LaJoie had high expectations for this team. He really talked it up. He talked a big game. And, they've really kind of backed it up. They've come to play in 2024. And I feel like outside of Front Row, who, they kind of came back down this weekend, but I think that's more of a reflection of Ford's speed or lack thereof that they showed as a whole at Vegas. Spire looks to be the most improved team through 3 races. LaJoie had borderline top 5 pace at Vegas. He was comfortably in the top 5, a borderline top 5 for the majority of that race before he spun towards the end of it. And then Carson Hocevar, man, drove a very respectable race, finishing 15th. He was, around like 12th to 15th for most of the day. Zane Smith's day ended as soon as it basically began, so that was unfortunate. But you gotta love what you see out of this operation, and we know that they've been raking it in the Truck Series, which shout out Raja Carruth, hell of a win at Vegas for his first career win, especially with Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch in the mix. Just really, really good stuff from Raja. So big weekend for Spire, I would say, across the board. And it's just really encouraging to see this from a team who has invested a ton of resources in this operation, right? Like, they've put in the money, they've put in the resources, and it looks like for now, at least to start the year, they're getting a pretty good return on investment for what they got. So Corey LaJoie, he's been really good, man, and he's been up front. So I'm very curious to see kind of how it translates. We go short track racing in Phoenix this weekend and see if it's sustainable. But it's certainly noteworthy to see what Spire has done. But do you think that they could become a legitimate contender this year? Maybe not, for obviously wins on a week-to-week basis, but a team that could be there for the taking if the cars, play into their favor.
That's exactly it. Like, you talk about, top 5 speed, winning speed. That's just a different, kind of situation, or a different position for a team to be in. A team like Spire, I think they are definitely capable of putting themselves in a position where, if the cards fall right, like you said, if there's, strategy plays, if there's, 2 tire, 4 tires, people stay out, even if it's a fuel run and just a couple guys, fall out, or if there's some attrition and some guys have issues, they have the potential to be there to pick up those other positions, and they'll easily be top 10, top 5. And LaJoie has the experience to run up front. We know he has made mistakes in the past, when it comes to Atlanta, Daytona, or other races when he's running for a win. But when he is up front, you said it, they did a strategy play on that 7 car, and it was working out great. We saw something similar with Chastain at the end of the race, taking 2 tires, and he was able to stay up front. And LaJoie was the same thing. And I would feel like those are very different cars, from Trackhouse to Spire, but it was very similar result. And he was able to stay up front and, had a bit of an issue, and it led to an accident later. And Hocevar, he had a little problem, but he was able to come back. And with Carson, we've seen that potential from last year with the 42 car, and he had some top 15 runs there. He was 11th at Bristol, so we know he's able to do great things even without the experience or the knowledge of years of Cup laps. It usually takes years until you get to that stage, especially with smaller teams. But he had the most green flag passes of any driver, Carson Hocevar, and that speaks to how quick he was. He didn't qualify great. He ran, all the way to the top of the mid pack. He had that issue, drove all the way back. That's a lot of passes there, and they're in a really good position here. Spire has put a lot into the sport as a whole. They're killing it in the Truck Series, 3 straight wins if you count Nick Sanchez and that kind of alliance with Rev Racing, Kyle Busch's win, and now Rajah Caruth. And it is starting to kind of trickle into the Cup Series with these 2 guys running well. I know Zane Smith he has a lot of potential as well. It just hasn't been a good start to the year. He hit the wall at Atlanta, and then he hit the wall here and had a couple pit road issues on the team side. 36th on Sunday. So Zane definitely has to get his feet underneath him. It's been a different challenge on the 71 compared to the 7 in the 77. But once they get those things kind of squared away, I think it's going to be 3 cars that are going to be pretty consistently running top 20, and top 10s are going to be a massive story once it comes to summertime.